filled with sin.
Hello, everybody. We are back again for part 2 of Delayed But Not Denied. This week, we're going to be talking about the dream fulfilled. We talked about the journey last week and what that looked like for you and your wife. And now we get to talk about what happens when you're out of the way and you get to just enjoy everything that God has actually promised you. But before we get started, just got to give a quick shout out to our sponsors for today's episode. This episode is brought to you in part by Techvestors Property Investment Group. It's a multifamily investors with a goal to provide modern, contemporary design living at affordable prices while building generational wealth for kingdom purposes. And much like last week, obviously, in honor of this episode, we're also sponsored by Casa of Collin County. Casa of Collin County is on the front line of services for children removed from their homes and placed in child welfare due to abuse and neglect. Casa of Collin County trains, supports volunteers to serve as court-appointed advocates who provide best interest advocacy and meaningful connections for children in the child welfare system who experience abuse, abandonment, or neglect. So shout out to our friend Shannon, who's an advocate there and just doing amazing work for the kingdom and just bringing your 1% wherever you go. My name is Davido and I am not by myself. I am with a man who fears no evil when he walks through the shadows of Death Valley. It's your boy, Jerome. Over. Say what's up to the people, man.
That's an amazing intro, man. What's going on, people? Glad to be back with you guys again. Again, we're just here to share love and to uplift and encourage you guys. So thank you for this honor and this blessing that we get to share these moments with you.
Thank you, man.
We're grateful.
Glad you're here, man. So last week we talked about kind of the process of, before King Kai came into your life and kind of what that went through. Let's talk about the match, right? So you guys have waited, you've had disappointment along the way, didn't get the results that you thought you were going to get 1, 2, 3 times, and now all of a sudden you guys are matched. Share the moment of when you guys received the news of being matched with the birth parent and discuss some of the emotions and some of the excitement that surrounded that.
So this is by far the most exciting and the most emotional part of the journey because we received 3 no's, but then we received God's yes.
Come on.
And it's an overwhelming feeling during that time. So during the process of creating a profile, you get to obviously create some prefaces for yourself. So we received a phone call on a Wednesday, well, actually on a Friday. So this was a little bit untraditional situation with this particular birth mom because she called the agency when she already had given birth to the kid. Mm-hmm. Typically, they build adoption plan for birth moms early on in the stage, and then potential adoptive parents will get notified between that 7 and 8 month period. So it happened, and it happened really fast. So we received a call on a Friday that there was an opportunity for us to share our profile book for a baby boy. So that was a preference that we had indicated early on. So immediately I'm filled with joy, and God is taking one of those promises that we've prayed about and putting it in place. And a funny story about that process when we received the phone call. So it just so happened that my wife was listening to a message from our church, Elevated Life Church in Frisco, and it was the message that Pastor was telling everyone to come up. He had a coffin in front of the stage, and whatever you're praying for, drop it in this coffin.
I remember that. And
give it to God. So we did that during that process. So she was looking at this video, and I kid you not, in the middle of that message, he was on stage and he said these words. She told me, like, right in the middle of the video, he was saying, with God, all things are possible. That's our family scripture. And she received the phone call.
Wow.
And I think about praying 2.5 years before, and that was the scripture that we stood strong on throughout the entire process. And God knew exactly at the right moment, at the right time, what it would look like.
Just to put a little bow on it, you
Right.
know, a little cherry on the cake there,
Right.
man. I remember two instances that really stood out to me. One, I remember as you guys were going through this process, hearing God tell me, I need you to sow a seed. And I'm thinking, do I pay for the child? Like, you know, I'm like, what do you mean sow a seed, God? Like, it didn't make sense to me. And we were shopping for like a baby shower, and I see these Travis Scott booties, little baby booties, and I'm thinking, like, I mean, as soon as I saw it, I said, oh my God, that's the one right there. And I remember going up to you. I was so nervous, man. I remember at the church coming up to you guys, and I said, hey, you know, I want to stand and agree with you guys, and I want to believe with you guys that God's promise is going to come to pass. And I showed y'all the booties and was like, you know, because I had two at the time, and I was like, hey, you know, which ones do you guys want? And I knew you guys were going to pick the Travis Scotts. I knew it. And sure enough, you guys picked them. And it was just one of those moments where it was like, man, God, like, sometimes you may not be able to give monetarily, but you can always sow seeds of hope. You can always strengthen somebody's faith. You can always sharpen somebody's iron. And I was so honored to have, you know, the opportunity to be able to sow, because I won't forget when you called me and you told me. Listen, and it was crazy because my whole family was there that day. My kids were there. They had known how much I was praying for you guys. And man, when I got that phone call, it was like the same way I knew you guys were going to choose those Travis Scott booties. It was like I knew when that phone call came in, I knew it was the one, man. And man, I screamed so loud, man. I'm sure I busted somebody's eardrum, man, on the other end. But bro, I was just ecstatic for you guys, because I knew that, you know, that not that your journey had ended, and in a lot of ways your journey had just begun, but to know that God was faithful, man, and to see it happen in real life, it was like, man, it gave me so much hope. You know, it gave me that belief that God is always faithful, you know. And so that was just a really special moment for you guys, but even just, you know, being your friend and kind of walking this out with you, man, it was truly an honor to be able to get that phone call, man. I was ecstatic and just over thrilled for you guys.
Well, thank you, man. And it's so amazing that you shared that, because, again, like we talked about, you know, how do we get through that uncertainty period during this process? And that was one of the ways, by, you know, having friends like you that planting seeds of hope through it for us, helped us get through some of those challenges where it was just heavy during the season, because, you know, there's a lot of unknown in the process, a lot of emotions in the process. And so us receiving that call, we had 30 minutes to decide, you know, if, you know, we wanted to move forward as well. So a wealth of emotions flood. We're not ready. I only built the crib. We got to go and buy stuff all weekend. So it was just, you know, one of the most special moments that I'll treasure and remember forever.
I love that, man. So talk about meeting the birth mom. And, you know, what were, like, just kind of reflecting on, you know, meeting her for the very first time, and obviously knowing, you know, why you guys are meeting, and talk about, like, how important it was to, like, put her at ease, right? To, like, let her know that she made the right decision. Because I can't even imagine, you know, as a parent going through something like that, but also knowing that, like, they're making the best decision for that child, right? Talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah, I guess the biggest emotion during that process is we prayed over this birth mom during the entire process. So for her heart to be softened, because she was giving up a really big sacrifice, one of the biggest sacrifices that she could ever make for her kid, and trusting and believing that God would bring him to the right home. So us praying over her, you know, we going into the meeting, I wouldn't say there was fear, but we just didn't know what to expect. Yeah, it was a lot of, you know, anxiety for my wife, because, again, we prayed over her for so long. We wanted to look right. You know, we wanted it to look right. And we didn't want her to have a feeling like we weren't the right people for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And it just so happened it was the same day that we were meeting Malachi for the first time and then bringing him home. So all of those emotions are happening all together.
Wow.
So they're all interceding at the same time.
Wow.
So you have to, in some ways, compartmentalize how you're going to approach this situation of honoring her for the sacrifice that she provided to our family now, and really loving on her during that meeting. And that's exactly what we did. I'm not sure if it's common, but we brought her like a dozen of roses just because we wanted her to feel love instantly when she first saw us. And that was one of those small gestures that we could provide to her. And it went great. It went great. She was everything and more that we could imagine. You know, right? A connection, and we felt it.
Yeah.
And we felt it.
Was there ever a moment, like when you guys were talking, where, like, you felt that, like you felt her pain, or was it just joy pretty much from the jump?
We felt that she was at ease and she knew that she made the right decision. And I say that because my son, his name is Malachi, but it's Malakai, and she has two other kids, a boy and a girl, and both of their names begin with a K. And she had named our son, his name would begin with the K, and she mentioned to us that she had a shortened version of it, and she was going to call him Kai.
Wow.
And that's what the nickname for our son. So those dynamics and just knowing that God, again, like from the last episode, had his hands all over it. Yeah. You just, in that experience, in that moment, you just like, thank you, God. Like, you heard every single prayer. You heard all of our friends praying. We believed, and you provided everything that you said you would provide.
Man,
and it's just beautiful.
I like those types of stories are the ones that people have asked me sometimes, you know, if God is so loving and so caring and knows the desires of our hearts, why do we go through difficult times?
Right.
And while I've got many answers for why that is, I always believe that those stories are stories where you could tell it 1,000,000 times, but not one time could you ever take God out of the story. It's just evidence that only God could do what only he could do in that moment, and align those pieces and those moments that I'm sure were just as meaningful for her as it was for you, being there, the whole drive up there, and then realizing, oh man, like that's the perfect piece of God that so many of us crave and desire. And it's only when we're willing to surrender the result and say, God, I'm happy either way. I trust you in the situation, where he brings all those pieces together, man, and really writes, the most beautiful story, man. Hollywood couldn't even come up with something like that, man. So,
amen, bro.
So
during that meeting as well, like we asked her, how did you decide to choose us? Because you want to know in some ways. And the hesitation that I had about the family profile book, she said that was the reason why.
Man.
And because our little puppy that we have, Gumbo, he sealed the deal at the end. So the fun environment, the experiences that we could provide, just the natural love that she felt inside the house when it was something that was heavy on me, that was the reason, that she selected us. So, yeah,
give you that
he did.
Piece, man. That's amazing, man. Shout out to Gumbo, man. That was a great dog.
He is.
Man. I love Gumbo, man. But that was really just the beginning, because the adoption in and of itself still wasn't finalized at that time, right?
That is correct.
So like, what are some of like the insights into like the legal aspects of when you adopt a child? I'm sure there's paperwork. I'm sure there's a process. What was that like for you guys? Yeah,
so like I mentioned, it was not a traditional process because she came in so late during the adoption period. So there was a lot of documents that still had to be finalized. The legal portion of contacting the birth father and what that situation looked like as well. So he had already been born. So when that does happen, they place the child in a temporary care, right? And it's called a temporary loving care family. So there's a 2-week wait during that process to get all the documents and everything finalized.
Now,
so
you didn't have him at that time though, so it's another.
No, he was placed into a temporary family during that period. So again, like those emotions of God, we know that you've designed him for us. Now bring him to us on your time. So the conclusion, I would say, like the full process of adoption, it takes 6 months.
Okay.
When you go through all the legal court rulings and finalization of the document process. So in that period, you still are doing home studies. So once a month, the adoption counselor has to come and do a check-in with the family. And that check-in is obviously the safety of the home and what that looks like, but it's also still getting updates on the family. So we're still doing interviews during that process. While he's in the home with us, she still wants the adoption, and the state of Texas still wants to know, like, you know, what does your family look like? What are your plans for having a baby in that process until, you know, the period of 6 months ended? You still have to wait through.
Wow. And I'm sure maybe there were moments where you thought, like, man, is this too good to be true? You know, could this all just be taken away? Or, you know, it's just crazy to me that you go through the process, you go through the journey, not knowing, and then you get the promise and you still feel like, well, you know, it's not final yet. Right. So for 6 months, you and your wife had to essentially like fall in love with Kai and still not know if this was something that was going to be permanent. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that was a huge emotion for my wife during that process, where again, like, I had to make sure that I listened to her, and I build on the love that we were building inside the home with them, because that is exactly what you said. It's still not finalized, so you still have those emotions of a what if situation. A what if the mom changes her mind? Legally, she's still, you know, there's different rights, and there's still, you know, things that could stop that from happening, but it hasn't been signed and documented in the eyes of the court. So you still, you know, waiting for that birth certificate to come in and say, we are the parents, you know, so still a 6 month emotion, right?
It's almost like when your name is written in the book of life.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
So then talk to us about King Kai's home.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the joy. Talk to us about the emotion of being able to welcome him home. And now he's a newborn baby. So now you gotta get up. You gotta get up at, you know, every 2 hours. You're changing diapers. Like, you become an instant dad. You become an instant mom. Like, what was that like?
I think it's just like, from the beginning, we decided that we're gonna do everything together. And that's exactly what we've been doing. Everything together. So every moment with him is together. So sleep deprivation was an understatement in that period, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, just those first few months where, you know, your whole life has changed. Everything has been disrupted, what we've done in the past. My wife and I are both seasoned, so we're not young parents. So we've established and lived a life where, you know, it was, you know, we wake up when we want to wake up, we go where we want to go. But now we have him, and it's all about him.
Now be honest with people. Did you struggle getting that car seat figured out?
I did. I mean, YouTube is the greatest thing alive to help you navigate through all of that. But yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Oh man, that's awesome, man. So what is life like now? Everything's finalized, you know, like all of the hoops and hurdles and obstacles, everything that you guys had to endure. Now King Kai is yours. He is family. He is your son. He is your legacy, right? Talk to us about like the impact that has on you, on your wife, and obviously, you know, even your extended families, because, you know, obviously there's uncles now, there's cousins now. What was that like?
It's everything that I dreamed of and more. It's a picture of possibility through the lens of God. So legacy is so important. Now we see a legacy. We see it every day. So it's not just building something monetarily or building something materialistically, but it's an actual it's something that all parents feel. All parents feel it. and I can't quantify what it is, but you know what it is.
Yeah.
And the house now was already a house of peace, but the house now is pure joy.
Yeah.
Pure joy.
Yeah.
Even waking him up in the morning and seeing him smile every morning. Again, like I said, we appreciate every moment. Every single moment is special.
Man.
And it hasn't changed since we brought him home.
And he is going to be a direct beneficiary of love, right? Like, I'm not no disrespect to the birth mom, but we don't know what kind of life, he would have had God not brought him into your life, right? And knowing not just how bad you wanted it, but how well you honor God through loving him, teaching him, guiding him, directing him, right? That is something that as he gets older and maybe, the story is told, he'll look back on and be so thankful. He may have questions, obviously.
Yes.
But he'll be thankful because every day of his life, you honor God back by loving him the way that you do. And I just think that's truly
That's so
special,
true.
man. For
That's so
new
true.
parents, they come up to me sometimes and they'll be like, oh, give me some advice on having kids, and they talk about staying up at night and changing the diapers and stuff like that. And we have a good laugh. But one of the things that I always tell them is that having children is enjoyable no matter what stage of life they're in. I've got a teenager, I've got a 10-year-old, I've got a 9-year-old, and my son is 3.5, he's gonna be 4. And I have truly enjoyed every single stage of life that they've gone through, watching them develop their likes, watching them develop their personalities, watching the differences between them and how it all kind of works together in this crazy way, and seeing how, they have certain characteristics that are mine, and then they have certain characteristics that are my wife's, and just being able to kind of dictate and say, hey, I know where you got that from, right? There's never been a dull moment in any stage of their life. It's truly the greatest gift of being able to steward God's children, because they're God's children first, but to be able to steward them and to know that God trusted you and your wife to steward King Kai's life, man. I just think it's such a testament of the beauty of legacy and the beauty of the promise. What does legacy mean to you?
It's everything that your parents establish in life for you. And you are responsible for carrying that torch forward and making it better for the family that you have after yourself. So it's raising your kids, raising your family with values and principles to where they become people on the earth that move God's kingdom forward by living the right way.
Yeah.
And I think, some people will think legacy is how much money you have. But for me and my family, it's the love that we leave in this earth. And it's through our relationships and our alignments of, how well of a life we live. And that's what I want our legacy to be and his legacy to be as well. So
I love that definition, and I love that it's so personal to you, because I agree with you. A lot of people think legacy is what you leave behind, the material things, right? The possessions, right? None of which you can ever take with you. And I've been in situations where, the parent will pass away, leave a house behind, the kids just sell it. That doesn't mean anything to them, right? But I agree with what you're saying in the terms of how you live your life. And so, to anybody again watching this episode, I just want you guys to understand that this is why it's so important for you guys to be all that God has called you to be, to truly maximize your life lessons, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because when you learn those life lessons, they become pieces of your legacy that you get to leave behind, that then shape your children, so that your ceiling becomes their floor, and they can go on to do far greater than what they can think, ask, or imagine, or even what you thought was possible, because you paid your price and you did it each and every single day. We're getting ready to wrap up this series, man. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you for telling your story, telling it to me, telling it to us, telling it to the audience. I honor you because I know that this wasn't easy. And I know that there were moments where maybe in private, you were wondering if things were really going to work out as well as they did. And to be able to see it now, bro, you're inseparable, man. Like, as many times we will be, oh, do you know Jerome? And they'll be like, oh, yeah, the one that's got the baby all the time. I'm like, oh, yeah, you guys are inseparable, man. But what we're watching is we're watching a father and a son bond. And that's a true delight for me, man, because I'm not a hater. I'm a celebrator, man. And I'm going to celebrate you every time I see him, man. Had the opportunity to hold him. I've had, the opportunity to just really enjoy him. And just seeing him in those little moments, I can't even imagine what it's like to be at home, man. So I just want to honor you. I want to honor your wife. And I just want to thank you for being so transparent and sharing that with us. If there was any words of encouragement for anyone out there, maybe not even just in the adoption process, but something that God showed you in the midst of all of this, what would that be as we wrap up this series here?
I think one of the most important things is to trust in God's timing. And even in the no, find peace. So I have 3 really important things that I took away from this process. Well, the 3 things are pray, don't strive, do what you can with what you have where you are. So with praying is talk to God, plead with him, thank him, cry with him, literally pray with him. It's a period of waiting, but it also can be a time of preparation. And what I mean by don't strive is you shouldn't be lazy, but if you find yourself with less time than you had while you weren't waiting, it's probably because you're trying to force something to happen.
Come on.
And God is already making it happen for you.
Come on.
And then do what you can with what you have where you are. You may not have foreseen your current circumstance, but God did.
Yes, he did. And that reminds me, as we close this one out, man, Moses, sees the burning bush. God gives him a command, say, I need you to go and free the people. And Moses is like, I don't even know how to do this, right? And God asked him a question. He said, Moses, what's in your hand? And to me, the significance of him asking that question is everything that you've ever needed is already within you. You are good enough. You have the capability. You are equipped. You are well able. But when you take what you have and you place it in God's hands, that's when God can do what you can't do and makes the impossible possible.
Amen.
Man, I'm so thankful, dog. I love you, bro. It's all love from here, man. And man, I look forward to seeing King Kai grow up into a young man and really do life together with my son as well, man. Because that is a true joy of my heart as well. So I can't wait for the best to yet come because I know what's coming.
That's
man.
right.
So you guys know who it is, man. My name is Davito. That is Jerome. If you like this sweater that you actually see here, man, it comes from a brand called We the Believers. I will leave a link in the description. If you guys actually purchase and use the coupon code Dead Religion, you get 15% off. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, do all the social media stuff at Dead Religion Podcast. Make sure you follow Jerome, Vision of Jerome, and also follow him at Vision of Alignment. We are Dead Religion, and we are out.
At the end of the silver line, the streets of gold. Heart on my sleeve, but he put his on cross. Down on my knees, I pleaded tears before.